going to go through an update on the Ayra Cards concept that we've been discussing with multiple members in various different fora, both inside the member community and beyond. This is an update to the original work we pushed out, and I think it was in March 2025. It's currently August 2025. So the general thing we're going to go through is, what's the concept behind Ayra Cards? Show you a repository in Gitbook where we've gathered a bunch of input and it's ready to be edited, totally rewritten, worked on though by the community. Many members have asked for access to that. Talk a little bit about the work ahead, what do we do next. So if we back up to the original concept here, so consider in the real world, in the physical space, a business card. A business card does a couple of things. It provides content and context. So content-wise, I decide what to put on my card, or my employer decides what to put on my card. Context-wise, I hand it to you. You then decide what to do with it. So you have your own context. We have a context together, but you have your own context, and you'll determine what it is you're going to do there. We know how to do this. We do this all the time in the real world. But digitally speaking, I can certainly put my card in a wallet. But then what? Then what? What happens next? How do you ask for it? Not consistent. There's some arguments. Some would say QR code. Still, underneath the hood, not consistent. But how do I offer it to you? Again, inconsistent. Perhaps more importantly, what do we do afterwards? In the real world, when I hand you a business card, there's likely a reason. I've just met you. We've met before, but you now want to have my particulars because we want to connect and stay in touch with each other. We want to actually do some business. We want to go to the next step of our relationship. We know how to do that in the real world, but it's utterly inconsistent on a digital world. But what if we could define this kind of dance steps? We know the dance of how to hand a business card and what to do with it. How do we define these things? This is the metaphor we're using, the analogy of, how do we make it like a dance so that I'm offering and requesting your card as a known dance move, where I can sign and share signed and verifiable information. So, for example, if I give you a card, you can expect a small amount of standard data. Business cards have a kind of a norm. There's no standard, but we all know to look for name, company, job title. Is there a phone number? Is there an email? Is there a web address? Is there a physical address? Is there a QR code? You also, though, may get something more dynamic. Meaning I may get other things. I may get a list of things that we can then connect with. Those are what we're calling payloads. We'll talk about that more later. It's in the repo that we'll be sharing and whatnot. The idea being, I've handed you the business card. You've taken a look at it, and now we're going to go to the next step. You're going to confirm information on me, but we'll talk about that in a bit. The idea behind the payloads is when I give you the business card, standard information, very simple thing, but it also has these payloads, your system decides what to do with it. Which payloads does it know about? Which ones does it care about? Which payloads will it trust and at what level? I'll give you a working example of an LEI and a VLEI, roughly the same information, very different assurance profile. And you again decide what to do with those payloads. Systems can create new payloads, and we can also start managing and normalizing, socializing which payloads are working for folks, which ones they care about, which ones they need. This gets into the longer term vision of a type catalog. A payload is a type of thing. It may or may not be a credential. It could just be something as simple as this is a pointer to data. But let's go through that again in a little more concrete example. So I got Joe Bloggins, who's an Uber dev for Rampage Coffee. And I hand you a business card which points at a bunch of different things. I can give you organization information, what roles I'm in, what registries you can point me at, any legal information. So as an example, let's say Joe Bloggins has met me. Turns out he's not just an Uber dev, but also the CEO of a company. They could point me to the corporate registration. That registration is actually the corporate registration for Ayra itself. This is just a working example. But that's an attribute. There's no, or at least low assurance. That's public information that Joe Bloggins could have grabbed from the internet, found it, decided he wants to pretend to be part of Ayra. You don't get much other than thank you for the pointer that at least lets me take the next steps of the dance. I can do that. But what if he had an LEI? So LEI is similar. It's an attribute I point to. That's not the LEI. That's the sample one off of the Life website. Again, this is an attribute. I can assert that this is it. I can have an employer sign a business card that says our LEI is this. But at the end of the day, it's just a relatively lower assurance attribute. But you know who said it. You know who told you that. What if we go the next level? Instead of sharing just the attribute, we actually point you to the VLEI, the verifiable legal entity identifier, where we work through and we can determine, in this case, we could actually ask Joe Bloggins, if you're actually a CEO of this company, I want you to sign something that I want you to prove that. System would go out via the VLEI dance that it knows how to do. Ayra Card doesn't really care, doesn't know about it, but facilitates and bridges to it. So we have that bridge into the VLEI. It does the signing thing. Joe Bloggins says, yep, I signed as an officer. You get a signal back on the VLEI side because you know how to do that dance. You know how to handle that payload. And now you have a high assurance version that actually is Joe Bloggins. Another example, this is me in this case. I can put my card into, this is the BC government wallet. I live in British Columbia. I could point you to some information. In this case, I actually want to point you to I'm going to send you, here's the question to ask me to get my very high assurance issued by the British Columbia government, real government credential, where all I'm doing with the payload is simply saying, ask me for this. So I'm pointing you at the question you want to ask. If you know how to do that, how to ask for British Columbia, you're going to take that information and say, thank you. Great. I now have a high assurance version, and I know that this is most likely me. So I get to do that dance. We've worked and talked with Glyph as an example, notional. This is the work that needs to be done. I'll get to the repo in a moment. What would that actually look like? What does an Ayra business card look like? How does it point to from an LEI as an attribute, or in this case as a VLEI as an actual payload that lets me do the actual VLEI dance? So backing up, if we look at the one of the drivers behind this, I'll cover that in a sec, is the special network effects paper that we found when we launched Ayra, that this paper has been quite powerful. Ayra cards are a form of universal credential. They normalize three things. Credentials, what's the data and formats. We don't have to worry about what's the format, what's the exact schema. It's going to be nice and simple. You just pick it. Payloads, how do I use that credential to bridge into other systems, pass you an attribute, point you at a system, etc. But also interactions. How do I make the dance steps, the beginnings of this dance, consistent? The drivers behind this are what we're finding is Ayra Cards. After announcing it in March, we had some really interesting feedback. And over the past few months, we've learned that it really has helped folks understand multiple things about Ayra. One is, why do we have a business governance and technology posture? Because you need to understand there's a business reason for using this. It has some light governance, and its technology is consistent. It also exercises all of the key Ayra technical components: trust registries, conformance test suites, and type catalogs, which we've not spoken about a lot of lately. It also aligns a few things on external issues, in that there are very specialized systems that are driving attention, whether that be agentic AI, whether that be government systems, but they're extremely limited in their application, and we need commonality. This helps us bridge into them. The First Person Project has also driven a lot of interest, and it aligns really, really well. The Special Network Effects paper was also one of the drivers behind getting a lot of outreach on the Ayra cards. But also, we started asking people, why is this resonating? And there's a couple key points here. One is, Ayra cards are so simple that they don't ask you to rip and replace your old systems, your existing systems that are functioning and meeting your needs. They let you leverage them because we encourage linking and bridging to them. Another resonating point is it helps people, especially those who are not deeply inculcated or indoctrinated into the self-sovereign identity movement, the decentralized identity movement. They have business things they want to accomplish, and that the technologies and the approaches help, but they're focused on their business cases. What this allows people to do is say, hey, could I put that as a payload? The answer is, generally speaking, if it's tied to a person, yes. we certainly can do that, which lets them think, okay, great, now I can start thinking about how do I use that card. Not how does the card built, what are the interaction patterns behind the card, but literally I can start using the card. The third thing it also does as a resonating point is it helps keep systems sovereign. When I say sovereign, I mean sovereign to the organization that runs the system, sovereign to the individual who is holding something and has their information, sovereign to the governments that we're working with or that we need to access. The Ayra Cards system approach it leaves them as sovereign. It leaves them in the same state of control that they were in. It actually facilitates maintaining that where it's appropriate. If there are inappropriate centralization points, I think the systems will shake out over time. But it lets those systems operate as is, which is a really big thing, because if I ask you to replace a system, the starting point is no. So where are we? I'm going to show you the repo, but really what we need to do is start working on the credentials. The payloads, what do they look like? The interactions, what are the standard interactions? I mean, I think with DIDCOM and OID, we already have those. Registries, who are the issuers, who's providing the various different trust registries that are out there, because there are many ecosystems that could be issuing these. But also, how does Ayra, the broad community, the staff, the members, work on this concept? We've got a few examples in here. Business cards. We wanted to talk about personhood credential and how things align with the first person project. But I want to jump over to what we've got is a Gitbook repository, which is beginning to gather. This is something that Alex at Check has used very successfully with their work. And we're finding it gives us a good level of control and collaboration, because we're beginning to produce this information that when we're ready, it's not there today, when we're ready to expose it to the broad public, we want to make sure that the Ayra Cards concept is rock solid, and that we can begin to modify. So it needs something a little more than Google Docs. You can access it directly through GitHub. You can access it through Gitbook. You do need to be permissioned in, but please participate as you can. I'm just going to show you quickly what this actually looks like. So this is the repo as it sits today. The goal is to get the repository out ideally next month, if not faster. We want to get this circulating broadly beyond the members, but it needs definite member input, and many members have indicated, hey, I want to see this, I want to throw in, I want to contribute, I want to leave, make a dent in the hard work ahead. So what you'll find is that the document is sitting there. It is in an early stage. This repository is, actually it's realized it's out of date, there we go. It is an early stage document. Let's be clear that some of the information here is going to be completely rewritten, removed. Some of the concepts are very, very helpful. It's organized to the extent that I think we can actually start making progress on, but there are no sacred cows here. It organized into the main idea, talks about why there are aligning forces that are really, the Ayra Cards concept helps align a lot of different things. It gets into some principles behind them, gets into the deeper concepts. When we look at, excuse me, when we look at the overall, what's the credential family look like? Because there's going to be a bunch of different kinds. What do the payloads look like? What do the interactions look like? But also those aligning forces, the dance we're talking about, and the fact that it exercises all of the components. So those are in here. As we get down below into the planning and modeling, you're going to find there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's certainly work above here that needs to be done, but there's a lot of work that is basically skeleton form here. So it really needs a lot of attention. But please reach out. Let us know how you want to participate. We've got a link here. This will also be in the newsletter. But because this is members only right now, we do need to just quickly gate. We got a very simple form. What's your name, what's your email. We'll get you into both seeing it, but also, if as you desire, into an edit capacity on that repository. That is it. I'm hoping this helps.